Imagine the pressure here with every single Chinese creative and the whole ensemble of performers waiting a little impatiently for the London lighting bloke to leave them in peace. Once again out at the airfield, our own dress rehearsal was completely rained off. And though it was a known fact that the clouds were seeded at this very time to keep the skies clear 2 days later for the ceremonies, I seemed to be alone in my suspicion that we were being deliberately targeted with some rather English weather. Although our hosts were never overtly obstructive, there was a definite feeling that London were not the most welcome of guests. This was possibly due to the rumours of comments of certain British politicians who had referred to the Chinese security team accompanying the Olympic torch in the UK as goons and had them strip searched at Heathrow. My opinion. During our final production meeting, it became my turn to comment on the forthcoming Paralympic closing ceremony and our last performance. Once again, our bums are firmly in the hands of our Chinese friends, and it remains to be seen whether there will be a final parting of the cheeks before our final parting of the ways. Paranoia? Judge for yourselves. During the dress rehearsal of the Chinese closing ceremony, immediately prior to our sequence, there came 5 young ladies scattering handfuls of plastic autumnal leaves from baskets. How lovely, and a few hundred leaves caused no problems. During the actual show, we experienced a 4-minute drop of over 5 million leaves all around the stadium, which completely covered everything, including the bus track and our performance areas. You can clearly see the tracks of the bus as it ploughed through the leaf drift. Fortunately, the air intakes were not completely clogged. Remember, this was a custom bit of kit, it wasn't a standard bus. It was a little concerning to get it all the way around this track through these leaves without it choking. And the area where our stage management had desperately brushed away as many shiny plastic leaves as possible, as to dance on them and do head spins was like performing on ice. So they had a mad panic to try and brush all this stuff away so these break dancers could actually not hurt themselves just before the event. We also discovered afterwards that the leaves were not flame-proof. So imagine performing that particular trick prior to setting off many tons of fireworks immediately overhead here in the UK. We walked away from our final performance with a huge sigh of relief and the feeling of a job well done. We'd introduced into a very impressive, though extremely regimented Chinese display, an element of fun and youthful energy. And I, for one, thoroughly enjoyed the challenge and surreality of working in this amazing country with these entertaining and hospitable people. Whilst we're on the subject of unusual foreign countries and people, in 2009, I was tasked with the illumination of the opening ceremony of the Donbass Arena, the new home of Shakhtar FC in Donetsk, Ukraine. You can take the football out of the hooligan, but you can't take the hooligan out of the football. You can see me here enjoying the event from my control position. The Donbass Arena is one of the most remarkable stadiums that I've ever seen and has been built in a previously desolate and very poor area. I only hope the local soccer fans can actually afford to visit it. The evening's entertainment included a football match between the Shakhtar FC's players and some aliens who arrived by flying saucer, mass choreography of a football player scoring a goal by Doug Jack, and a concert by Beyoncé. We installed a reasonable-sized lighting and sound rig, but I was very concerned about having enough sources to illuminate the mass choreography effectively. So I told the producers from day one that we would have to have the stadium lights switched on for this sequence. Note here the view on camera from the edge of the roof compared to the view of the audience. It's often a challenge to get producers to understand the viewing angles of mass choreography, and this picture illustrates the challenges perfectly. So even from higher up, right at the back of the stadium, you still don't really get the effect. As the show approached, it became apparent that the client had started a pretty big internet campaign to attract interest in the event. And this included a statement that an international lighting designer was going to create a spectacular and breathtaking moment for a Ukrainian superstar singer during the show. The audience were to be given LED torches as part of their kit, and at a particular point in the evening, the stadium will be plunged into complete darkness and the singer magically revealed in the middle of the pitch. Of course, this moment of magic was right after the mass choreography, which I'd explained would have to be lit by a certain level of light from the stadium floods. As we sat down to wait for the crowd of 45,000 to take their seats, it crossed my mind that the turning off process of the stadium lights might be worth timing, as there was no central control in this brand new stadium, though I had been given a man with a mobile phone to relay the off command to the switch room. I called him over and explained in my best Ukrainian that I wanted to turn the stadium lights off 10 minutes before the show. He seemed to understand and parked himself next to me, mobile in hand. So far, so good. At 10 minutes to showtime, I started my stopwatch and gave my new friend the international lights off cue. He put his mobile to his ear just as the MC took to the pitch and the crowd responded with a huge roar. Ironically, the MC was there to explain the magical lighting effect later in the show, and the noise of excitement from people turning on 45,000 LED torches drowned out the mobile conversation going on beside me. I was given the international sign of, "What can you do?" and my Ukrainian partner in darkness ran up the stairs and out of my view. The stadium lights went off a while later and I stopped the watch. 5.5 minutes. Bugger. The show began on time, and after the sight of hundreds of choreographed miners tap dancing on tin sheets and alien footballers taking one for the team, my friend returned with a translator and a tale of lighting woe. He had no sooner got out into the quiet of the concourse when his battery had gone flat. He had borrowed a mobile from a hot dog vendor and finally got through to his colleague. Very sorry. The show moved on. This left me with a bit of a dilemma. With a fully charged mobile phone and a relative quiet, how long should I leave to pre-cue the blackout during Doug Jack's massive footballer display so as not to ruin the end of it and not to spoil the much advertised magic LED effect? I picked the figure of 1 minute out of the air and sat with some trepidation as the cue approached. We switched on the stadium lights without a hitch, but between the verbal cue relay delay and the lamps warming up, it was impossible to get any clues about an accurate time for switching them off. Doug's mass choreography sequence looked splendid with enough light all round for the camera. At 60 seconds before the end of the sequence, when the player scored a goal, I gave the cue. 55 seconds later, nothing had happened. 56, 57, 58. Just as I was turning to grab my coat and leg it, the lights went out to a huge roar, bang on 60 seconds. The show was deemed a great success, and I had yet another lesson in the dangerous business of relying on stadium lighting systems and their control. When I returned to the UK, I got to thinking that there must be something that could be done about this. I had coloured up stadium fixtures with HT gel before, and even run scrollers in front of them by having several frames of the same colour rolling back and forward, but eventually burnout was the inevitable result. As I explained earlier, rather than bring in the equivalent of 10 rock show rigs for stadium events and create a pea soup of light sources, we need key lights from big, bright sources. And if the coloured wash underneath could come from the in-house lighting system, even the accountants would get that one. As more and more sporting events want to add a bit of theatre to the evening's entertainment, there is a very big concern, even at the Super Bowl for their halftime show, that if the stadium lights are switched off, they might not be on in time and at the correct colour temperature for the game to restart, which would be a serious problem. The Super Bowl. So at least we need a dowser, and ideally a scroller with dichroic colour to resist the heat, and some kind of beam width choice that will not lose all our light to get a decent wash spread. I thought of the Synchrolite Searchlight, whose scroller can provide washes of homogeneous colour, and got in touch with Jack Carmis to explain my concept. Well, of course, there is nothing new under the sun, and along with Philips in the USA, Synchrolite had spent the last few years developing such a fixture to fix on the front of an Arena Vision stadium floodlight. Using Synchrolite's reflector coating treatment, they made a new reflector for the Arena Vision, which doubled the light output of the original floodlight. The Arena colour can take 2 cartridges, a dowser and a scroller with dichroic colour or a variable CTO or CTB. Combined with Synchrolite's holographic lenses, which can alter the beam from 2 degrees to a very wide 75 by 45 degrees, and yet still with 92% transmission, we now have in our arsenal a rather unique and powerful tool for theatrical lighting in these environments. and indeed for any outdoor floodlighting application where a bit of drama is deemed appropriate. Anyone with an interest in this fixture and its many possible applications, do come and get a brochure from me at the end of the speech. As another example, if you take into account the fact that in the USA, they are now rigging up to 600 par cans in addition to the sports lighting to light NBA matches, so as to provide a more flattering tungsten colour temperature for the predominantly black most valuable players, you can see certain advantages in being able to control the colour temperature of the existing floodlighting. I used these fixtures for the first time in Mexico when I was tasked to consult on HDTV lighting for Mexican LD Victor Zapatero on the 200th anniversary of their independence. Victor had a comprehensive rig in Zocalo Square of the powerful clay-packy alpha beams and spots, and I felt that we needed an underlay of bright, controlled wash lighting for the massive parade, and so the first arena colours were deployed to provide this to great effect. There are several television lighting directors already introducing theatrical lighting to sports events and pioneering this approach. If I may quote one of the leading exponents of this art, Mike Gorman, "The business of lighting and televising sporting events is moving on very quickly, and I predict that the standard white light approach is now in decline, giving way to more imaginative methods of lighting sport events, and that a show lighting philosophy will be the only way forward." The forthcoming Olympics will present an opportunity to use coloured and effects lighting not only for the opening and closing ceremonies, but for the medal ceremonies of swimming and other indoor venues. Imagine the ice skating events lit à la Torval and Dean. Apparently the International Skating Committee won't allow coloured lighting to be used in the Olympics, which is a shame, but we might introduce it somewhere else. I do hope that one day we will see the introduction of theatrical lighting into stadium events on a more regular basis, with advances in systems such as the arena colour. Some football clubs already have basic lighting effects before a match, such as the singing of Blue Moon at Manchester City. Only a stadium blackout and one blue follow spot, but it's certainly a start. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that this has given you an insight into the techniques and opportunities for bringing a theatrical approach to the lighting of sporting events and their ceremonies in the future, and the type of equipment now available to respond to this trend. We do have a little time left, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.